What if you got paid just for being alive? Seriously, it sounds like science fiction, but it's a radical idea called Universal Basic Income, or UBI, and is being tested right now all over the world. Today, we're digging into the surprising data from these experiments to figure out if it's a brilliant solution or, a dangerous fantasy. Just think about that for a second. For literally centuries, our entire economic system has been built on one simple rule: you work to survive. But what happens when you just break that rule? Well, as we're about to see, the answer is a whole lot more complicated than you might think. And there's actually a name for this fundamental shift. Economists call it the Great Decoupling. It's this idea of severing that ancient, deep-seated link between doing a job and just plain surviving. And the results we're seeing from these global tests, they're both incredibly promising and, honestly, deeply paradoxical. To really see this paradox in action, we only need to look at the United States, where two recent experiments ended up with completely opposite results. So first up is the experiment in Stockton, California. The plan was pretty simple. Give folks a small, no-strings-attached financial floor, and just see if it gives them the breathing room they need to, improve their own lives. And get this, the result completely flipped the script on the biggest critique of UBI. Instead of people working less, full-time employment for the people getting the money jumped by a staggering 12%. Why? Well, that cash paid for things like car repairs to get to an interview, or for childcare, or for a new certification course. It didn't discourage work. It actually made work possible. Okay, but then you have this larger experiment, analyzed by the National Bureau of Economic Research. They doubled the payment to $1,000 a month, and the picture it paints is, well, it's completely different. In this study, labor market participation actually decreased by 4.1 percentage points. People worked, on average, a couple of hours less per week. So what is going on here? Why the huge contradiction? So what explains the difference? Well, it all comes down to the amount of money. That smaller $500 payment acted like a springboard. It helped people overcome the actual barriers that were keeping them from finding better work. But the larger $1,000 payment? That's when something economists call the income effect kicks in. Basically, people reached a point where they valued an extra hour of free time more than an extra hour of wages. It's not about being lazy. It's a totally rational choice when your basic needs are finally met. All right, so now let's zoom out. Because when you take this idea and put it on the global stage, the differences between developed and developing economies get even more dramatic. So in wealthier nations like Finland, a big 2-year experiment found almost no change in employment numbers. But what did change was people's well-being. They reported way less mental strain, higher levels of trust. So UBI wasn't really changing the quantity of work, but it was improving the quality of their human capital. But now look at rural Kenya. The results there were explosive. A major study found that for every single dollar of UBI that was delivered, it generated $2.50 in new economic activity. This wasn't just charity, it was an engine for real growth. I mean, the money acted like seed capital for the whole community. The number of local businesses shot up by 20%. People bought assets, things like livestock and metal roofs. And here's the most incredible part. This massive cash injection, which was over 15% of the local economy, caused almost zero inflation. Why? Because local businesses grew to meet the new demand. Okay, but And this is a really big but. Scaling these amazing local experiments up to a national level is where things get really, really complicated. All of a sudden, you're dealing with some very serious risks. The key difference here is all about incentives. UBI is what you'd call a carrot. It's unconditional, and you get to keep everything you earn on top of it. That encourages you to take risks. But a lot of our current welfare systems use a stick. They're means tested, which means as you earn more, your benefits get reduced. That creates a powerful reason not to work. And a perfect example of this is Spain's means-tested income program. An official evaluation found it actually reduced the number of days people worked. I mean, why would you take a job if the extra money you earn just gets taken away in lost benefits? It inadvertently created this classic poverty trap. And at the national level, there's this nightmare scenario that keeps economists up at night. It's called fiscal dominance. It's basically when a country's UBI bill gets so enormous that the central bank is forced to just print money to pay for it, which could trigger runaway inflation. And if you think that's just some abstract theory, get this. One economic model calculated that a UBI big enough to completely eliminate poverty in the US could require an income tax rate as high as 80%. Just let that sink in. That's the staggering scale of the challenge we're talking about here. So after all of this conflicting data, more work here, less work there, these entrepreneurial booms in one place, and massive risks in another, what are we supposed to make of all this? What's the big takeaway? Well, the central truth from all these pilots seems to be this. The Great Decoupling isn't actually about getting people to stop working. It's about rebalancing power. By providing that unconditional financial floor, UBI gives every single worker more leverage, an exit option from a bad job, and the freedom to find a better one. And that transforms the entire debate. It's no longer about if we should work, but why we work, and what we choose to do when our basic survival is no longer on the line. And that shift in focus? Well, that might be the most revolutionary change of all.